Okay, guys, this is video number 2. So, to summarize, with regard to the concerns that I have for your dissertation proposals, APA style, and that means no contractions, proper grammar, you talking about yourself in the third person rather than always in the first, uh, making certain that it has that dispassionate style that one expects in social science research. And I say social science research, I mean that broadly construed. I don't mean that to be construed as just being the traditional social science model where you're adding to theory and filling in a gap in the literature with your research, but rather you are doing the problem of practice and you're doing the action research dissertation with the social conscience that we would like you to do. So let's understand it in those terms. Some of the things that I want besides good APA style that we all need to have, and that doesn't change regardless of paradigm. You need to have good research questions. They need to be researchable. You also need to have a good lit review. It can't be like 10 to 20 pages of just a few sources with a lot of commentary. You have to go back and you have to make certain that you scour the literature, and you find what you can. And don't be afraid to go back to the turn of the century when the common schooling movement really took off in this country and we started to initiate the factory model in virtually every city and town as we moved toward universal first primary and then secondary education. Just about everybody was graduating from the 11th grade, in the early part of the 20th century, and then by the late 1950s, the 12th grade had been added just about everywhere. So there's a lot of interesting history with regard to education in this country as well to explore. Other concerns that I have, of course, making certain that your method, whatever it is that you decide to use, looks at your problem of practice from a variety of angles and that you use a variety of instruments, what we traditionally call triangulation. All right? But as I said, you don't need to have generalizable, reproducible results the same way that the research studies that were instanced critically in the Science article and then reported in the New York Times, what they were talking about. All right, because those are supposed to be following traditional social science, and you can see how hard it is to do, even when you're trying to do traditional quantitative social science in psychology. You're dealing with people. People are a lot like herding cats. We basically are ferrets, whereas rocks are a whole lot easier to study empirically. And scientists are often very smug about that when they criticize social science, and they say some people don't think it's real science. Actually, it is, because we're part of the phenomena of existence, and we've had a tremendous impact on this planet, and so we're worth studying. All right, and we are physical beings, and we are worth studying empirically. So social science is definitely an extremely valid area of study, and our action research within this entire field focused on your little problem of practice. Other things that I've mentioned, you need to explain your lit review and why it is important. That still stands. You explain your methodology rather than why methodology has to follow a certain pattern for action research. What are some of the other concerns? APA style, I'd mentioned that. Proper triangulation, word in quotes, not to be understood as being a strict social science research design necessarily, although you can do that if you wish. Use a variety of different things. These are the things that we're looking for. So essentially, the things that I instanced in red on your papers from the summer session, those comments are still valid. They're very much still valid. And all you have to do is look at good research designs. Mertler has several in the back of his book. Look at those research designs that have been implemented and what he has done in using those as examples for you, so that way you can follow them in that respect. But remember, you are fitting his social science action research into the 5-chapter traditional dissertation design following APA style. So it's not going to sound like an ASCD publication with contractions and personal pronouns and anecdotes and all that. You're not going to do that. That's the sort of thing that you would do to adapt your work for publication to be read by a mass market of teachers who are interested in your research but don't want to be bored with the deathless prose style of a dissertation when they're looking for something engaging that gets them intellectually and emotionally, so that way they are willing to implement it in their classrooms, which is what ASCD does with those marvelous little books. Think of Carol Tomlinson's books on differentiated instruction. Her style is chatty. I'm sure her dissertation was not, however. So please keep those things in mind, and we will get more information to you over the next several days and weeks. Some of you have written for consultations. You want to sit down and do line by lines on your disc props, and I think that's great. We will do that. We'll do that more toward the end of the term. In the meantime, tighten it up. And be concerned about getting the reading done. So you know that there are several books that need to be read. So for instance, in 726, it's this wonderful book. A lot of good stuff in here. Don't get me wrong. I'm in the process of making up questions for your final exams on this, and I've gotten about this far in this book, which I reread, I should say, over the summer, because I had the much earlier iteration of this book. And this is the 2013, and the one that I had was in 98. So I had to go back. Some of the things some of the things hadn't changed, but a good portion of it had. So it is up to date. It is a good book. I like this better for obvious reasons. And one of the reasons why I do like it better is it deals with real problems. All right, because a lot of this is action research and of various kinds. All right, and some of it is not. I think that mine is a good example of the kind of research that Mertler is talking about, and it's in this book right here. This one can be gotten out of the library. It was published in 2008 by SUNY, the State University of New York Press. I don't know whether or not it is still in print. I think it is, or I think it's one of those that they can print special. Let's put it that way. I'm not urging you to buy it, but I am saying you can look at it if you want. Those of us who have had 720 and now have 820, you know that you're dealing with these two things, right? These two things have not gone away. There's an awful lot to read in there as well and to react to. And so those are the bases. These are the bases of your posts. And also the Booten book, all right? Now, Booten at one point says, one of you instanced this in an email that you sent to me, that he said, we're just trying to write a dissertation. We're not trying to change the world. Yes and no. You are not so much trying to change the world as influence it positively in one direction in your own classroom. Not changing the whole world, but we're dealing with one little problem of practice in your little world, in your little schoolhouse, that has a positive impact on your kids or on your employees or both, and that will improve the educational experience for all, resulting in greater satisfaction, etc. and so forth, right there in your little locale. All right, not contributing to theory, contributing to the greater happiness, you might say, of the people with whom you work and the students whom you teach. And I think ultimately that's more satisfying. I felt, and you look at the paper that I wrote, because I did post it in documents. All right, look at that WLOE paper where I'm building understanding among kids. And I did this in 2002, I think it was. In 2001, I was still teaching in the upstate, and I came closer to Columbia for this little school that I worked in, that I did that paper on as my pilot study for my dissertation. Back then, when we did pilot studies and stuff like that, I think it's a good example of action research, and I'm kind of happy with it because I think I had a good impact on the kids. And this is one of the reasons why, for me, the diversity courses are of particular interest. I think probably the things I enjoy teaching the most are the ones that deal with diversity issues and deal with the kaleidoscope of cultures and languages and the various histories that have all come together to form the United States of America. We are an interesting place. We're a very interesting place. And that's one of the reasons why in 820 we have this book, which has an edge to it, which I think is good. This is Growing Up Gay in the South, and that's Jim Sears' book. And it's another example. This is another example of good ethnography, of the kind of qualitative research that one can do, which is enormously interesting and has a positive impact on kids, if only to raise consciousness about how, for instance, people deal with these issues, because that's what Jim studied: race, gender, and the journeys of the spirit. The vignettes in here, the vignettes and the stories. Stories are fairly long. They're chapter-length stories of how individuals dealt with and coped with growing up in a very conservative social milieu, which we have here in the South, uh, the positive and the negative impacts that those have had on them, and still do to this day. Right, still an issue. In fact, probably more so of an issue because now gay people have a formal recognition, and there are more opportunities for them to express themselves without being literally beaten up on the street. I think one of the reasons why gay men are often so fitness-oriented, it's not just an Adonis complex and looking good. Sometimes it's just being a guy and liking sports and liking to play basketball, lift weights, and stuff like I do. Other times, it is for self-defensive purposes, and I've heard that a number of times in school, where some of the kids that you would not expect, who are gay, have built up literally not just character armor to defend themselves, but emotionally, but also physical armor in order to be able to fight back when they're attacked. Because there is still, among teenagers, a tremendous amount of intolerance, and this is the sort of thing that we need to work on without necessarily changing people's religious opinions. We want to show respect for people's religious opinions. And we show that respect, and we hope for respect in return. Not agreement, respect, understanding, that sort of thing. So those are the things I really want to leave you with as well, because I'm not just concerned about your disprop. It is very easy to be just focused on that and just obsess. But these courses have content over and above. And this week, I'm going to read your posts. I'm going to use them as my riff in order to come back to you with what I've found. So far, I'm really impressed with the quality of the posts. You guys are engaging in issues and talking with one another, which is just awesome. That's what we should be doing, and I like that. You should be deriving inspiration from looking at one another's work. And it's a lot to read. You got a lot to read. You have lives to lead, families to be with. You have to read fast in these classes, right? And you're also working on your disprop. And it's like, do you even have a life? Is it possible? Do the best you can. I know you will survive if you work at it. There were times I wondered if I would survive, and I'm a fairly intelligent guy, I like to think. But Susan pulled me through, and so did Jim, and I managed to do it. And it has always been one of the enduring, really, really good experiences in my life where I can say I'm really proud of this particular achievement, getting that big book done, and getting all the coursework done, and graduating and having the title doctor while I was in high school. That's a much bigger deal than in college. Professors in college don't walk around using the title doctor all the time. I put Dr. L on my emails to you, but I don't require anybody to call me, any adult to call me anything other than my first name, which is Rich. So even though I answer Dr. L, you can call me Rich if you want, and I will call you by your first name if that's what you want too. So whether formal or informal, whatever you wish, at the university level, we're not as excited about these terms. They're important. They're like getting certification is big in high school, and in secondary, elementary, and middle. Anyway, if you're in a public school, you got to have that certificate, right? You have to be certified to teach, and you have to have all these endorsements. And you have to be HQ. Lord have mercy, it's complicated. If you're national board certified, wow, that's really good over and above, right? In higher ed, certification doesn't exist, and it's not an issue. But having the degree. Being able to say, even though you don't say it very often, that you are Dr. So-and-so, is important. So to keep that in mind, that little difference right there. But in high school, I really enjoyed using the title. And I think it will add some authority to your work at the same time. And it'd be a really important achievement, kind of like getting National Board certified. We're talking about an empirical approach to writing. You provide clear and convincing evidence when you do the national boards. A lot of that writing style and that mindset is the same as for writing a dissertation, regardless of whatever design you happen to be using. So take heart. We're going to get more and more information out to you. We're going to provide you a bit more flexibility, but follow the instructions I gave you and read on your papers. And I don't want to say don't worry about it. Of course, be concerned about it. But focus on your problem of practice and on solving your problem and doing it within the context of dealing with diversity issues so you can reach and help everybody in your school. And I hope you're all having a great start to the school year. This is my first year without the kids. And I got to tell you, it feels weird. I kind of miss them. I kind of do. I like working with y'all, but I miss my kids. So you take care. Talk to you later. Bye-bye.